Good morning to all. In the last lecture, we have seen some of the topics related to the Charter Act 1773, then Warren Hastings Permanent Settlement System, then Subsidiary Alliance System. These things last class we have seen. So in today's lecture, these are the following topics we have to discuss. The Charter Act 1813, then the Vellore Revolt 1806, then a famous act which is called the Saint Helena Act, then what is Doctrine of Lapse, and another the most important one is the Woods Dispatch 1854. Okay, move on to next slide. It's the Charter Act 1813. So already we had Pitt India Act 1784. Before that, Regulation Act 1773. So now in that line, the third act has passed, that is the Charter Act 1813. So what are the provisions there in this Charter Act, which is mentioned below? This act asserted the grown sovereignty over the British possession in India. So just to recall the previous two Charter Acts. So 1773 the company was taken care by the British government, and a new body was created that is called Court of Directors. They are nothing but the shareholders of the company. Then other presidencies, the Bombay and Madras presidencies comes under the control of the Governor General of Bengal. Then Supreme Court was set up. Then Elijah Impey, who was the first Supreme Court judge. So these are the Charter Act Regulation Act 1773. So later again, it is the act passed, that is the Pitt India Act 1784. The reason for the Pitt India Act is to overcome certain drawback which was there in the Regulation Act 1773. For example, in the Governor General Council, there was 4 members were there. So the council members were reduced into 3 in the 1784 Pitt India Act. Then certain entire the Pitt India Act empowered the Governor General's decision making power. Then afterwards, the Charter Act 1813 passed. This is what the Act says. The grown sovereignty was improved or reflected in this Charter Act 1813. Then another one important features, the company rule was extended another 20 years, which means up to 1833. So again in the 1833, it will further extend into 20 years. Then the next Charter Act will come 1853. This is what the Charter Act extension took place through the acts. Then most important feature in this act is the trade monopoly was ended, except the trade with in tea, which means previously only the registered persons or merchants in the East Indian Company can do trade. Other merchants in England, they cannot do trade in India. So that monopoly was ended with this Act 1813. And one more new, the group, they are called missionaries. They got the permission to come to India to propagate Christianity and to initiate some education system. Okay, and so many times in the exam they used to ask about these points because these are not permitted in the earlier Charter Act. Then this is another one important features, because a sum of less than 1 lakh rupee in each year, for what purpose? Set apart and apply to rival and improvement of the literature and encouragement of the learned natives of India for the introduction and the promotion of knowledge of science among the inhabitants of British territories of India. Actually, this is the draft which has taken directly from the Charter Act 1813. The main purpose to improve the education, to improve to initiate the westernization of education. You have to spend 1 lakh rupees per year. That is what the act says. And a fourth member was added into the Governor General Council, who is called the law member. And the first law member in the Governor General Council was Lord Macaulay. Okay, so now once again recall the Regulation Act 1773. In that act, the Governor General Council, the total members were 4. Then to empower the Governor General decision making power, the BITS India Act came in the year 1784, where the number of members in the Governor General was reduced into 3. Now again, a new member was added exclusively as a law member as per the Act 1813. That is the law. So Lord Macaulay was the first law member. And in the next Charter Act 1833, in that act, a law commission will be set up, and the commission will be set up. That we will see in the next Charter Act. And the act also provided measure for the abolition of slavery system. Just remember, keep it in mind in which Charter Act it was abolished or removed. Then this act also empowered the local government to impose taxes on the persons subject to the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. So these are the various provisions in the Charter Act 1813. And the fifth point, which is this has been asked in the UPSC exams in the preliminary, in the so go through all these points. Now, next, in the same year, 1806, there is a revolt happened. That is in Vellore, called Vellore Revolt. And what it is actually, because in the history, modern history, we have 2 major revolts. So one is the Vellore Revolt, another one is the Great Indian Revolts, 1857, which means exactly 51 years later. And in the Vellore Revolt, what are the main reason or causes that we will see now? And here in the South India, almost British, they have captured or they have annexed many princely state, but exclusively in the southernmost part, where the Katappaman and Palayakars and the Maruthu brothers, they were all dominating the area, and almost they were all removed or suppressed by these British. So after the suppression of the revolt of Maruthu brothers, they made the Vellore center the Vellore fort is the center of their activity in the sense to make conspiracy against the British. That is what they used the Vellore fort as a main center. Because of that reason, the Vellore fort became the meeting ground of the rebels forces in South India. And these are the rest of the points. It talks about what are the new initiative was forced from the British side, and because of those initiatives were not accepted by the native rulers, and due to that the revolt happened. So first point, the English enforced certain innovations in the administration of the Sepoy establishment. So what are the innovations they implemented or they are forcing to implement? The first one is they prohibited all the markings on the forehead. We know the South Indians, those who are going to the temples, they used to keep the devotional marking on their head, and so it was not permitted from the British side, and which were intended to denote caste and religious, and directed the sepoys to cut their mustache to a certain pattern. So another rule, they have to, the mustache must be in the particular pattern will be given from the British side. It should be like that only. Then Adjutant General Agnew, he designed and introduced one new turban, a new Mara turban he introduced. In that turban, which was made up of leather cockade, leather in the sense it was made from the pig and the cow skin. Okay, and we know in India the pig skins was anathema. Anathema means hated, or we can in Tamil will call titu to the Muslims. And at the same time, in upper caste Hindus, they used to treat the cow is the holy sacred animal, and but so the leather cockade was made up of the skins from these two animals. So this is what the main reason or most important reason which was making the sepoys to get angry over the British. And another one the order they gave or they implemented in the sepoys are the front part of their uniform had been converted into a cross. Okay, because the British, they are the Christian community, so they were try to infiltrating or implementing their religion pattern in India. The first incident occurred in May 1806. In that, the men in the 2nd Battalion of the 4th Regiment at Vellore, they refused to wear the new turban because for Muslim it is a hated one, and for Hindus it is a sacred one. So they were opposed to do these kind of order. So first one, you have to remove the marking, the religious marking on the forehead. Second one, you have to cut your mustache as per the pattern which is given by the British government. Then you have to wear the new model of turban, which is made up of the leather cockade from the cow and the pig skin. And in that uniform which you are going to wear must have the cross symbol. So these things are making the sepoys highly irritation and angry over the British. So they started revolt. And this type of bitterness it passed to other battalions and other regiments also. But by that time the British was so powerful and they had enough army persons. It was entire revolt was suppressed within 15 minutes. So this was one alarm to the British government that anytime these uprising will be happen. This is what the points regarding the Vellore revolt. And same once again the revolt happened in the same Indian history after 50 years. That is called 1857 revolt, 1857 revolt, but which started in the northern side. This is we will see in the next consecutive classes. Then on to next. After that, now the Lord Hastings was appointed as a Governor General in 1813 to 1823. During his period, these are the events took place. He went to war with Nepal, and he had an agreement with Gurkhas, which is called the Treaty of Sagoli. Then during his period, the Pindari War was happened, and in the history, these peoples had certain events. Who are they and why they had important? They had given more focus during the British time. These are the following answers. And they were irregular military blenders. Normally, they are the blenders. Okay, they used to blend wherever they move with group. They will move. They does not have the proper army or regular army, and simply he will go to any place and they will blend They will do the blend. Okay, in local language we can say they are the trained thief. And where they have settled in Malwa, and they attached themselves to the Scindias and Golkar in that region, which means the Marathas. They are the Marathas chief. And as I said, they does not have the regular army, and they were prepared to follow anybody. This is what their principle, the principle of life. They can follow anybody. They can prepare to follow anybody who promised to give them booty. Booty in the sense of whatever the amount which are received illegally can be shared. Okay, the blended amount, that is called booty. If anybody ready to give that one, then they are ready to follow them. This is what their principle of life. Then in 1815 and 1816, they attacked and blended the territories of Nizam. It means they moved towards to the south and they started their blundering activity. And by the time Lord Hastings was Governor General of Bengal, so he discussed with the Court of Directors. Again, I'm giving one reminder: Court of Directors are made up during the time of as per the Act of Regulation Act 1773. So these got up director, they gave the permission, and Lord Hastings decided to eliminate these Pindaris. So the Pindaris activities are almost came to an end during the Governor General of Bengal, Lord Hastings. Then next, the William Penting, who took in charge as the Governor General of Bengal from 1828 to 1835. So, so William Penting, he was the governor of Madras during Vellore Mutiny, which means 1806. Then in 1828, he was appointed as a Governor General of Bengal. He passed the English Education Act 1835, and that replaced Persian with the English in the higher courts. He also advocated the Indians to be educated in the Western style so that more Indians could be employed in the administration, because they know only English, British, and in India they were ruling many parts or many regions, especially Bengal, the Bihar, Odisha, then Bombay and Madras. But peoples were speaking different languages, so it is difficult for communication in the administration. So that is why he was advocating the Indians. They must be educated in the Western style so that they can also include into the administration for their easy purpose. Then in 1835, he during his time period, the Calcutta Medical College was set up, and the peoples were admitted irrespective of caste and creed. Then Bentinck, he decided to put an immediate end of sati. Actually, the Raja Ram Mohan Roy also, he through his effort, he put an immediate effort to end the sati. And then Bentinck, he prohibited the female infanticide also. Then during his period, the Saint Helena Act 1813 passed. So this is in some books they have mentioned Saint Helena, but it's a very popular act, which is also called the Charter Act 1833. So this is what the introduction about the Charter Act 1833. Saint Helena Act. It is Saint Helena is an island in England. In that name, it got another name. So before enter into the provisions and observations regarding the Charter Act of 1833, let us once again recall the overall activity which has started by the British from the beginning, which means Eastern Indian Company, they started as a syndicate. Syndicate is a group of merchants for a particular business or particular purpose. So they started as a group of businessmen or group of shareholders. What is their objective? With the objective of promoting trade in India. And in the initial period, they had only the trading. They did not have any territorial authority, mind it. Okay, only the trading spots here and there they had, but they do not have any control over the Indian territory and with authority. Then in the year 1757 and 1764, most important years in the Indian history and a turning point to the British Eastern Indian Company, because the 1757 we had a battle of Plassey. Then in 1764 we had a battle of Buxar. So these are the battle you gave their influence much more in the control over the Indian territory. Then after that, Robert Clive was in picture, and who introduced the dual government system in Bengal. And we have discussed enough about the dual government system. Authority is one hand, and the responsibility is with another one hand. And real power is authority, or real power is the British, and the responsibility is the Bengal Nawab, or with the Indian rulers, we can say, or Indian princely states, rulers. Then after that, the Warren Hastings was appointed as a Governor General of Bengal, and through this Regulation Act, his position or post called as Governor General of Bengal. Then that we have discussed enough. Then BIPS India Act came in the year 1784 to overcome certain drawbacks in the Regulation Act 1773. Then the Charter Act 1813, just now we had seen the provisions in today's class in the beginning. So these are the overall things happened after British entered into India. So in one line we can say about these act, in the Regulation Act 1773, it's the beginning of the parliamentary control over the company. Okay. And so here, just to think about why this act is called the beginning of the parliamentary control over the company, in the sense when the company was approaching the British Parliament or British government for getting loan to run their company, then the crown or the Parliament decided to control the company which was in India. So that is why they wanted to do some regulation, because company was corrupted. And companies does not have enough money to maintain their activities or providing salary and all. So lots of mismanagement happens during that period. So that is why Parliament decided to control the company, which means to regulate the company. That is why they passed the act, that is the Regulation Act 1773. So that is why we are calling this is the beginning of the parliamentary control over the company, not over the India. Okay, fine. Then BIPS India Act 1784, it is also called the Act of Settlement 1781, and it shows the supremacy of Bengal over the presidency of Madras and Bombay. Why? In the Regulation Act 1773, even though it directed that Bengal and that Madras and Bombay governors, they should accept, or they should follow, or they should comes under the control of the Governor General of Bengal, but the clear functions are not mentioned properly. But it was the responsibility, the roles and responsibility of between the Governor General of Bengal and the Governor of Madras and Bombay were clearly mentioned in the BIPS India Act 1784, especially in the military power. Without his Governor General of Bengal permission, other presidencies governors should not take any initiative. This is what the BIPS India Act gave the supremacy or dominant power of the Bengal. Then just now we had discussed about Charter Act of 1813. In that, the British Crown asserted greater control over the power of council, and the most important point, the monopoly of the trade end, excepted tea, with the tea. Then now the move on to the Charter Act 1833. It is the beginning of the establishment of the legislative institution. This is the most interesting one. From 1773 to 1833, how the lawmaking powers has been evolved. And as I said, the last slide, it is also called the Saint Helena Act 1833. In the next slide, we will see the provisions about the Charter Act 1833. So these are the various the important provisions. The first, the Governor General of Bengal become the Governor General of India. The title changed, and need to discuss now. So what is the reason they are changing their title, and after changing the title, what it reflects? This is important to discuss, because in Regulation Act 1773, it also gave the designation, or it also gave the position or title is the Governor General of Bengal, and the original title is the Governor General of Fort William. Okay, anyway, the act first mentioned and fixed the designation of the ruler. So the Governor General of Bengal name is changed to Governor General of India. It gives different sense, because if I say the Governor General of Bengal, it talks about a particular area, which means the Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, that the area. But if it talks about the Governor General of India, means it talks about the entire India is under control, the British government. This is what the title is changed. And even though the Governor General of Bengal got the supremacy or dominant power over other presidencies of Bombay and Madras, as per this act, if you say that he is the Governor General of India, means automatically he got he is the overall ruler in India, and all other presidencies are comes under the control of the Governor General of India, who is in Bengal. So this is what the first provision says. The Governor General of Bengal became the Governor General of India, and his government for the first time came into know as the Government of India. This is another one. Okay, so previously it is called Government of Bengal, and now it is called Government of India. And it was the beginning of the one more reason is there why we are calling the Government of India. We will see one by one. And it was the beginning of the establishment of the legislative institution in India. Legislative institution in India, which means the entire legislative power for all the British territory was exclusively vested in the Governor General in Council. Okay, so we will discuss a little bit later. First, move on to the third point. The law-making power, that means the legislative power, was taken away from the provincial government as per the Charter Act 1833. Then the governors of the subordinate presidencies were put entirely under the control of the Governor General, in the sense that he was to obey the instructions of the Governor General in all points relating to the civil and military administration. And in coming to the first one, the first point, and the second and the third, each point gives a different meaning through this Charter Act. The fourth point, what it talks about the centralization of the administration. That means without any permission, without the permission from the Governor General of India, other subordinate, other province governors, they cannot do anything. So all the powers are vested with one person, that is the Governor General of the India. Okay, this is the centralization of administration this act reflects. Then I said is the beginning of the establishment of the legislative institution, which means the lawmaking power has been taken away from the provinces, which means all the lawmaking power is given to the Governor General's Council. So now the Governor General Council is ready to make the law. Okay, the previously these laws are made from England. The Parliament passed the law. Say Regulation Act, which was passed in the British Parliament. Then BITS India Act. BITS is the Prime Minister of the British by that time, and that was passed in British Parliament. Then Charter Act 1813, that act also passed in British Parliament. But after the Charter Act in 1833, this act give permission. Hereafter, you can make the law with the help of the Governor General in Council. That is why this act says it is the beginning of the establishment of the legislative institution in India. And then the most important feature of this act was it allowed the native rulers. It allowed the native rulers to, irrespective of his birthplace, descent, or color, to hold any office. Mind it, hold any office. Let it be even the Governor General also under the company. But the act give permission for the Indians to take part in any position in the company, but in practically no Indians in the Governor General post appointed any person from Indian. Then this is what we discussed in the beginning. The Indian Law Commission was set up. Okay, the Lord Macaulay was the first chairman. This is what I said in the Charter Act 1830. One more person was added in the Governor General Council, who is the law member. So under his chairmanship, the Law Commission was set up. Then this act also provided for the Presidency of Bengal. It divided into two: the Presidency of Agra and Presidency of Fort William. But this provision also not came into effect for administration purpose. They wanted to separate or divide the Bengal Presidency into two: the Presidency of Agra and Presidency of Fort William. But this also not came into effect. So these are the important provisions under the Charter Act 1833. The most important one, why the title has been changed. And after the title changed from Governor General of Bengal into Governor General of India, it gave a new sense of uniting the entire India comes under one control. Then, and the legislative institution was set up, which means the legislative power has been taken away from the provincial government into Governor General of India. Then the centralization of administration was reflected in this Charter Act by asking the other subordinate, the governors of the Madras and Bombay, to obey the instruction, especially all the matters relating to civil and military administration. So these are the important provisions. And the next we will observe we'll do some observation from this Charter Act. This is what I discussed. The reason changing the Governor General title, which means the whole of the country came under the head of the company. Previously the title was Governor General of Bengal. That means indirectly it gives or directly it talks about a particular area, that is particular province, that is Bengal only. But now after changing the title into the Governor General of India, means the whole country comes under the head of the company. That is the reason. And it was moving towards the direction of the centralization. This is what we talked about. All the powers and all the subordinate, whatever the decision they are taking, the civil and military affairs, without the Governor General of India permission, they cannot do. That is why this acts moving towards the direction of centralization. So it established the centralization of legislative powers in India, because the lawmaking powers are taken away from the other presidencies. Then the law passed under this Act of 1833 was called the Act of Parliament and not regulation. Previous Act, 1773 Act, Pitt's India Act in 1784, then the Regulation Act, the Charter Act 1813. These acts were called regulation, but this Act called the Act of Parliament, because hereafter the law can be passed from the Governor General Council. Then it will be sent to British Parliament for approval, like that. So that is why the laws passed under this Act, whatever the laws they are passing under this Act 1833, they are all called Acts of Parliament. Okay, then the laws made by the Governor General Council were placed before the British Parliament. Which means you pass the law here in India in the Governor General Council, then you send to, or you keep, or you send these whatever the law you are made, you place before the British Parliament in London. By this time, the company had to close their commercial business. Almost they entered into the political the business. Okay, so that is why the trade opened to all the merchant. That's what's called in the Charter Act 1813. The monopoly was ended, because any merchant who come to India from England do the trade. So now they focused more on the administration or political administration. That is why almost the companies closing their commercial business and seriously took up their political and administrative duties. This is what I said. Okay, now they focused more on political duties and administrative functions. Then some historian says it is the most important act passed by the Parliament till 1909, and we had some more important acts we will see in the modern India. The one is in Government of India Act 1909, then Government of India Act 1919, then Government of India Act 1935. These things are we will see. So among these series of acts, this is also one of the most important acts passed by the Parliament. And this is the last point, again we discussed enough. It had an important provision regarding the governance of India and marked the beginning of Indian legislature. So next, these are the various Governor Generals of India after William Bentinck. And exam point of view, these are some events I have mentioned. The event took place during their time period. Those things are somewhat important. But we'll see one by one. After William Bentinck, Charles Metcalfe was the Governor General of India. During his period, he abolished the restrictions on the Indian press. Okay, lots of restrictions were there in the Indian press. So he removed all the restrictions. So because of that reason, he was in the Governor General of India post for a few months. Immediately he was recalled by the British Parliament. Okay, because he was in favor of the Indians or Indian press. That is why he was recalled. He was in India for a few months only. After that, Lord Auckland became the Governor General of India. During his period, he took some initiative, which means he arranged scholarship for various government schools. Then the medium of instruction uh, he ordered in all the primary schools was to be in vernacular language of the area concerned. Then after that, Lord Ellenberg was the Governor General of India. During his period, he annexed Sindh by war. Then Lord Hastings was appointed as the Governor General of India in 1844 to 1848. He took some initiative in the education and expenditure side. In the education, he appointed all appointments in the public service to those received English education. Okay, and then military expenditure he reduced. Then salt duty also reduced during his period. The next most important Governor General of India is Lord Dalhousie. Okay, so Lord Dalhousie, he is the most important person in the modern history because he initiated a new method to annex the princely state. Now, generally, the policy of annexation was done by the East Indian Company in two ways. One is by war, another one is by peace. So, by war, we have seen from the beginning itself. So Anglo-Mysore War, Anglo-Maratha War, Anglo-Carnatic War. They all annexed the nearby neighboring state through wars. Okay, but Dalhousie he went one step further to annex these princely state by peaceful agreement. So by war he annexed Punjab and Burma. By war, he annexed the Punjab and Burma. And in Burma, there was a treaty called the Treaty of Yandapur. And this treaty was violated by the Burma. With what type of violation? In the sense, as per the treaty, they have to allow to set English merchant in Burma, but they denied. So that is why the war took place between British and Burma. So later, Burma was annexed. Then Sikkim War, it was also annexed. So by war during his period, the Dalhousie period, Lord Dalhousie period, the Punjab and Burma and Sikkim were annexed. So how he annexed other certain provincial, certain princely state by peaceful method. So peaceful method means do not think that a peaceful negotiation with those princely states, not like that. Okay, he took one weapon. That means which is called doctrine of lapse. Okay, suppose if you are not fulfilling certain criteria, and your power or your privilege automatically lapsed. That means you have to give up. This is what the method he followed, that we will see in the next. So that is called the doctrine of lapse. The definition I have given, what it is actually. If the native ruler, that means any princess in the princely state, failed to produce, this is a gift of God. He cannot reproduce as per the law of nature. Okay, to produce a biological male heir, that means a son, to the throne after his death. The territory was to lapse or fall into the British India after his death. This is what the meaning, the definition of the doctrine of lapse. Very simple. If a king does not have male child, then he has to give up his kingdom into the British after his death. Very simple. Okay, very simple. And these are the following kingdoms were annexed with the British government as per this doctrine of lapse, because they cannot do anything also, because by this time British have empowered lot in the military and civil and politically. They are very strong. So even though if they are denying, they cannot. If they deny, then he will take another weapon, that is called war or peace. This is what the policy he followed. So the first princely state which was annexed to the British India, that is under this doctrine of lapse, that is Satara. So then Sambalpur, then Bhagat, then Udaipur, then Jhansi, and then Nagpur. These are all annexed. under the doctrine of lapse. And exam point of view, in the UPSC they won't ask, but in some state public service exams, they can ask in two ways by match the following. In one side, the principal state, another side they can mismatch with the years. And in sometimes in some state exam they have asked the arrange the sequences of the annexation. So like that questions may ask. And other than these, the Awadh and the Berar, they were also annexed peacefully under the British India. So Awadh was annexed under the concept of the good governance, the good of the governed. Then the Berar, here the Nizam got the problem, and you just remember there was one more method called the subsidiary alliance. In that, Lord Wellesley, subsidiary alliance. So, as per the system of subsidiary alliance, if the Nizam or if the ruler or failed to pay the amount to the to maintain the British army in their territory, okay, then that Nizam, that ruler must give certain portion, a certain area to the company. This is the one of the rule in the subsidiary alliance. Okay, subsidiary alliance, you know. You have to allow the British army, a unit of the army in your territory, in your territory, and the maintenance of army must be taken care by yourself. So if you cannot able to maintain the British army in your territory, then you have to either give up the kingdom or give up the certain area to the British government. So as per because of that rule, the Nizam could not do the payment. So this the Berar, the portion of the Nizam territory, was annexed with British India. So these are the places where, for your clearance, where these princely states are there. Then Jhansi, it is in Agra, Uttar Pradesh, near to Agra, Uttar Pradesh. Then Nagpur, then Satara, okay. Then Sambalpur in Odisha, then Udaipur, then Rajasthan. So just for your knowledge. Then what are the reform was done by the Lord Dalhousie during his period? So too many reforms he initiated. In the military side, he started the policy of reduction and disintegration and distribution, which means instead of keeping the entire army in one place, he made the army unit into small unit and distributed all over the India, wherever his companies rule is going on. And not only company rule is going on, and he as per subsidiary alliance also there, the princely state also must keep British army. Okay, then first time he introduced the Gurkha regiment into the Indian army. Then he ordered to increase the number of British troops in India, because already the British, they had a jerk through the revolt which took place in Vellore. So they know there might be a revolt, because their administration not in favor of the people. So their main motto, and that is why they are doing the mistake, and at the same time to overcome any problem because of their non-favor towards the people, they decided to increase the number of British troops or strengthen their army in India. This is what he concentrated more. Then in the education side, he was introduced Thomasian system of vernacular education, local language education, especially in the whole of the northwestern province, the Rajasthan area. Then during his period 1854, there is an important dispatch which is called the Woods Dispatch. It laid foundation for the modern education. So we will discuss very clearly about Woods Dispatch in the next slide. Then he also mentioned or directed to teach in both vernacular and English languages. And in the telegram and the railway side, he took various initiatives. In 1853, the first railway line erected, which connecting between Bombay with Thane during Dalhousie period. And he's also called the father of electric telegraph in India. So during his period, the telegraph line, the first telegraph line is from Calcutta to Agra in 1853. So these are the various reform which was taken by the Lord Dalhousie. The next, the most important topic, that is Wood Dispatch in 1854. So it fully talks about the education reform, the various initiative in the education side. The first one, the constitution of separate department for the administration of education, which means the education must have a separate department. And recently, the present government has changed the name, the Ministry of HRD, into the Ministry of Education. And in every state, we have separate education department. So this is what this would dispatch also directing. And it established the universities in the presidency town. So because of this, various universities are established. University of Calcutta and University of Bombay and Madras were established as per this dispatch. Then the maintenance of existing colleges, high schools, and increasing their numbers, which means you have to maintain the do the maintenance of the existing colleges and high schools. At the same time, you have to increase their numbers to westernize the education. Then at the same time, expansion of mass education through vernacular language. This is another one important provision. Even though they were concentrating more on the western side education, they were also concentrating on the vernacular education also. Then because of that, it instructs the medium of instruction must be in English for the higher branches and vernacular for the lower level. This is a good initiative. You learn the basic things at your own language, and you enhance your knowledge in the other common language, which is called English at present. Okay, but now people's mentality changed. Now the kids are doing their education from the higher level language like English, but they forgot about the local language. Its impacts are discussed by many persons. Okay, let it be. Anyway, the Woods Dispatch gives the importance of vernacular language in the lower level and a need full of English language in the higher level. Then it stressed the importance of training of teachers for all classes. This is what in our current situation we have teacher training exams are there. Okay, teacher eligibility tests are conducted in various states. And it focused more on the female education. Then it established the new middle schools in India. It also advocated the grant in aid system. It's based on but based on perfect religious neutrality, which means we can say secular. Okay, Hindu school must get this much grant in aid, or English, the Christian community school must get this much grant. Not like that. Irrespective of religious. They were it was advocating to give granting aid to the system. Then Anglo vernacular colleges for a careful cultivation of the vernacular language also mentioned in this Woods Dispatch. Some other provinces also there. It encourages the students with stipend, scholarship, rewards, and merit. These things still it is followed. Then liberal rewards for the best elementary treaties in the special languages. Then it pointed out the indispensability of the education. This is one important feature because you have to. This talks about the importance of the examinations. Without examination, you should not judge the person's quality. This is what the most important provision. But recently, the announcement made by the Tamil Nadu government, you pass all the students, those who are having arrear without taking tests. These are not a healthy decision. This also understood by the Woods Dispatch. That is why they pointed out indispensability of the examination. Examination is must to judge one person's knowledge in the particular area. Okay, then it demanded the periodical report of the government inspectors, which means whatever the things you are implementing in the education side, It must be observed periodically and inspected periodically, and make the report and placed placed into the Governor General Council. Then a comprehensive system of scholarship was introduced so as to connect the lower school with the higher school and higher school with the colleges. That means the integration of the education system. Now we are following three-tier system, and the connecting between these level is a little missed. But the present new education policy is talking about this thing only. You have to connect your lower system into the next level, the next level into the higher level to the practical level. So like that, the education system, it was already mentioned in the Woods Dispatch. So what are the impact? The University of Madras was established in 1857, but along with the University of Madras, University of Calcutta and University of Bombay also established. The introduction of grant-in-aid system was a remarkable feature in 1857 dispatch. Still, now also grants are given to the universities. Then in all the provinces, education departments were set up. Like we had in each state, we have new education departments. Then Bethany schools was started for women's education, and Agriculture Institute was started at Pusa in Bihar. Then the Engineering Institute was started in at Roorkee. Then British India witnessed a rapid westernization of the education system with European headmasters and principals in the schools and colleges. So these are the factual data because of the Woods Dispatch in 1854. So up to now, we will end the class today. And the next class, we will talk about the Great Indian Revolt. Then how, after the revolt, what was the new initiative taken by the British Parliament? A new law will come, the Government of India Act 1858. Then the entire administrative structure will change. Okay, lots of things will happen after 1857. And before in that class, we'll also discuss what was the reason for the revolt and who else were, how it was spread, how it was suppressed, what are the main causes. That we will see in the next class.